Sarah Boone just testified in her trial on only day 3, which is super surprising because we thought that this trial was going to be like 3 weeks, and now we're like halfway through the first week, and Sarah Boone is already testifying. And a couple of interesting things happened during the testimony that Sarah gave today, and also with the detective. I'm going to start off by talking about what kind of happened ending the cross-examination of Detective Copel and kind of her demeanor on the stand. And then we'll jump right into the defense trying to get the case thrown out, Sarah Boone testifying and pretty much, in my opinion, lying to everything. At some point, I started to actually feel sorry for Sarah and was like, maybe she is going to be able to prove battered wife syndrome, or battered spouse syndrome. But then the prosecution started questioning her and she couldn't remember anything. But you want us to believe that you remember the story you just told, but you didn't even remember what happened 9 minutes before that incident. This live stream is going to be a little bit different for my people that usually watch the live streams because we're not going to do as much chat and we are just kind of talking about the case. So this live stream is going to be a little bit different. We're really just addressing the case so that we're all caught up. And y'all, I'll just let y'all know, I have been trying to make pre-records for y'all, and what I've learned over the last couple of days is that I'm not very good at editing. So I have day 1 and day 2 covered. I just have not published it because obviously I suck at editing. But anyways, we are going to go ahead and jump into Sarah Boone's case and where we are so far in day 3, and I will get out day 1 and day 2 as soon as I am able to make it presentable in order to put onto YouTube. So we're going to have a Bossy B bring us in. And if y'all are watching live, like I said, I'm not really going to be doing much chat throughout the live stream. We'll get to it at the end. But if you're watching on the live, make sure you go ahead and drop in the chat and let me know that you're watching live. And feel free to drop your comments about what you think about the case so far. We're going to have Bossy B go ahead and bring us in so that we can start talking about the case. All right, y'all. So Sarah Boone, day 1, we went through like 10 witnesses. And then day 3, I think we got through 4 witnesses or so. And we are on the last the last witness from day 2 of the trial. And that is the detective that entered all of the interview footage and kind of testified to Sarah's demeanor during the interview and during this whole process. We start off with talking to Detective Chelsea Copsel. I think I'm saying it right, but I'm probably not saying it right. And she's pretty snappy on the stand with the defense attorney. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I don't think either of the attorneys are doing good. I don't think the state's doing good, and I don't think that the defense is doing good. I know there's a lot of information being thrown at them overnight, and maybe they're coming in tired, but I don't feel like they are laying foundations to questions, which I'm going to talk about in some of my pre-records. I just don't think that they're laying foundations. They're not like following up. They're not finishing their thought. They're not finishing their question. They're kind of leaving a lot of loose ends. And so the the defense's whole strategy behind the questioning, in my opinion, their strategy behind the questioning of the detective was literally to get her to admit that she tricked Sarah. If you guys watched day 2 and the interviews that came through, Sarah kept saying, "You tricked me. You told me to come down here and you didn't tell me I was going to be arrested. You told me I was going to be able to go home." And there was this one really strange question that the defense attorney asked and was like, "You were pregnant at the time, right?" And she was like, "Yeah." And then he just moved on. And I'm like, okay, like, where are we going with the fact that she was pregnant? As if he was going to try to blame her for being pregnant as to why she forgot that she didn't tell Sarah Boone, or that she told Sarah Boone that she was pregnant, so she needed to come to the precinct in order to get her cell phone, which Sarah testifies to today. But they don't follow that up on the cross of the detective. They just say, "Were you pregnant?" And then they just leave it there. There was another thing I wanted to talk about her. I have a bunch of notes, y'all, but I'm not trying to go literally down every single note that I have on the case. Let me see where I wanted to touch on with her. Oh, Yeah, so the defense was trying to get the detective to admit that she tricked Sarah into coming down to the precinct when it was an interview, and asked whether she told Sarah before the interview that she was going to be arrested. But telling Sarah that she was going to be arrested before the interview was not a requirement of the questioning. She read the Miranda rights, and so they had the right to question her. And then the defense attorney was asking speculative questions, which I would have objected to if I was the prosecution. Well, if you would have told her that you were going to arrest her, she could have came down with an attorney, right? And she's like, I mean, I guess, but the reason why we didn't tell her we were going to arrest her is so that she doesn't flee, which makes a lot of sense. But you can't speculate that if the detective would have told Sarah that she was going to be arrested, Sarah would have gotten an attorney, because Sarah has talked to the police on multiple occasions where her and George were having incidences. So I don't think that was a fair question. I probably would have objected for a cause for speculation. Like, sure, she could have brought an attorney, but is the detective really going to know? Did Sarah say something like, hey, if you guys are going to arrest me, then I need to talk to my attorney? She was read her Miranda rights. She could have stopped right there and said that she needs an attorney right there. And she just didn't do that. I don't think they really tied it up all together. They end their cross-examination there, and then she was released, but subject to recalls, meaning that the defense, in my opinion, is intending to call her on their rebuttal, or not on their rebuttal case, but in their defense, because they feel like they're going to impeach her on some things that she said. Again, they're trying to show that this lady tricked Sarah Boone into admitting the things that she admitted, which I don't think that they're going to be able to do. And then we move on to the defense wanting to go ahead and basically get the case acquitted. But also in the acquittal argument, they also asked for a reduced charge of manslaughter, which is strange, because it's like, if you think she should be acquitted and she's charged with the wrong thing, just ask for the entire case to be dropped. It might be a rule in Florida where if they can be convicted of a lesser charge, then you're supposed to ask for that in the acquittal request. But it was just odd to me, and it could just be because I am ignorant of the Florida laws regarding the acquittal plus dropping the charge all in one motion. I thought it was weird, but maybe that's just how they do. And we did learn that the defense attorney, Mr. Owens, has been doing this for 35 years. Now, does it seem like he's been doing this for 35 years after watching him do his cross-examinations and his direct examination, although we've only seen him do it with Sarah on direct? No, I don't. I don't. It's not coming off across as he's been doing this for a really long time. But at the same time, I do understand that he just got onto the case. He may not know it as well as he should. Although when we get to Sarah, we're going to talk about how he basically testified for Sarah rather than Sarah testifying for Sarah, which messed her up on the defense side, in my opinion. But anyways, he doesn't seem like he really knows the case to me. I wouldn't have taken the case this late in the game, like we talked about in the last live stream. But anyways, I am on a ramble, so let's go ahead and jump into the defense asking for the acquittal. We need Bossy Beat to go ahead and bring us in. All right, so, and y'all let me know, what do y'all think about the case so far? Like I said, I'm gonna get to the chats a little later on. I don't have Kimmy in the back to get the relevant chats for me, so we might struggle through the chats at the end of the live stream, but that's all good. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and let's see what the defense has to say about getting this case thrown out, but not really thrown out, just dropped to a lesser charge of manslaughter again, which I think is like really, really weird. So here we have it. Let's make it big. Okay, that's already done. Made it big. Hopefully they don't get all mad at me.
The record reflect that Mr. Beck has appeared.
Let me slow it down. I'm on super speed on y'all. I'm gonna put it on 1.5 speed. Y'all let me know if it's too fast or not.
For the record, I'd like to make 2 points about this issue, about whether or not I can bring in evidence of prior bad acts prior to the Overt Act. And there's 2 reasons that I believe I should be allowed.
Oh, wait, no, this is not the part that I talked about. I put up the wrong thing and I don't have time to go back and try to find it. So essentially what I was talking about, before we get into that, what I was talking about was them, or no, I think it's going to come up after this. Let's watch it and see where it goes, and then we'll talk about it, because obviously I don't know what I'm doing right here on this new type of live stream I'm trying to do.
So
let me bring it back.
One is, Judge, in that 2-minute video, Sarah Boone makes a statement That's how I feel when you choke me.
Okay, no, I'm past it. Okay, y'all, I'm past it, and I don't want to waste everybody's time trying to go backwards. So let me just go back and talk about what happened. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm all over the place just trying to get this out real quick. The defense, of course, can move for like, hey, the state did not prove their case, so we would like the case dismissed, or in other words, we would like an acquittal, or in the civil case, we would call it like a summary judgment. They didn't prove their case, so the court has to dismiss the case. As we know throughout this, following trials, the court usually does not dismiss the case in the middle of it, and they will just let people take it up on appeal, right? She'll be able to take up on appeal that the court should have acquitted her after the prosecution's case because they did not state a claim. Now, the arguments that were made as to why the defense believes that the case should be acquitted was actually made by an entirely different attorney. It's not the black guy that we've been seeing. And I'm sorry, I'm calling him the black guy, but I really don't know his name, and I haven't been able to catch it because I've been watching this like on the side, popping in, and not really paying attention to the names that have been said. But Owens also did not do the motion for the acquittal. I guess it was a completely different attorney from their office. The defense basically argues that it needs to be an acquittal, and they highlighted the statement of them claiming, or the statement that the detective made when Sarah asked, "Why am I being arrested?" And the detective said, "Because George is dead." The defense essentially argued that that's not enough in order to convict somebody on second-degree murder, which actually it is. All she kept saying is that it wasn't intentional, but he's dead, and she admits that she put him in the suitcase and that she didn't let him out. That is enough for second degree because it's depraved part. It's not intentional, but the defense argues this anyways, that wasn't enough. Of course, the detective probably didn't give her all of the elements in the video, but that's not the proving of the case. That's not how the state has to prove the case. The defense stated that it's not enough and stated that Sarah did not have depraved heart, that George got in the suitcase himself. So that demonstrates that it's not a dangerous act. The defense's argument was that Sarah leaving George in the suitcase overnight was not a dangerous act because George originally consented to getting into the suitcase. What they skip over is that George then withdraws his consent and continues to ask Sarah to let him out and telling her that he can't breathe and please let him out. That is a withdrawal of consent. Once he realized that he could not breathe and she heard that he could not breathe, that then becomes a dangerous act to leave him in the suitcase. And not only is she leaving him in the suitcase, she's taunting him while he's in the suitcase, basically like, ha ha, look at you, I have control over the situation. So I thought that was an interesting point. I get arguing your point, but you can't just skip over those relevant facts in arguing that point. And then they go on to ask to reduce the charge to manslaughter. Again, like I said, I don't understand how that works in criminal. Those that watch this channel know that I don't practice criminal law. So maybe that is a thing, but I've never seen it. They haven't proved second degree, so we got to drop it to manslaughter. No, they haven't proved second degree, so let's just drop it all together. They're not winning, but maybe because this case has been pending for almost 5 years. The prosecution stands up and argues that all the elements were met and that the defense cannot use Sarah's subjective statement that she did not know that leaving him in the suitcase would result in him dying, and that she had a depraved heart. She knew that he couldn't breathe. She left him in there, so she can be found guilty of second degree murder, which I do think that the interviews do show that she could be liable for second degree murder because she knew he couldn't breathe. At least she heard that he couldn't breathe. Her thought that, oh, he's lying to me so that he can beat me up after being locked in the suitcase, which what I would think would be at least 30 minutes. And we'll get into why I think it's 30 minutes once we get to Sarah's testimony. But for at least 30 minutes, she had him locked in the suitcase. So I don't know. I don't know where the defense is going with that, but the court ended up ruling that the state met their burden. They're considering the facts most in favor of the state, and they're going to allow the state to move on to the defense. The defense will also got up and said that they are going to call Sarah to testify first. And so he's going to need a moment to talk to Sarah and explain to her why this is not the best strategy. But the court basically gives him that time to talk to her. Then they go on to recess. They come back and the defense is like, well, we're not ready because we need to mark all of our exhibits and we need to do this and we need to do that. And we're not ready. So can we go after the lunch hour? The state is like, no, bro, we literally went over a timeline yesterday. You were literally telling me yesterday, I need to know when they're going to end their case so that I know when I can start. The case literally started at the time that the court said it would start, around 10:30. And he's still kind of trying to push it back. Or I guess it was more around 11:30. But he's still trying to push it back. You should be ready to go. But the court basically ended up allowing them to go past the lunch hour, and Sarah did not begin to testify until after lunch. But before lunch, let me see. I think there was an argument before lunch. Okay, yep. So, sorry, let me rewind back. Before lunch, the defense argued that they should be able to bring in, and so this was after he talked to Sarah about, okay, I usually don't have the defendant testify first, but since we're here now, essentially, since we're here, we're going to have you testify first. After the recess, the defense comes back and says that the state actually opened the door for the prior bad acts without the overt act, essentially asking for the defense to be able to proceed with their case without calling Sarah first, because they opened the door for the prior bad acts when the police when the police stated that they knew of the couple's previous fights, like they've had previous domestic violence issues. The cops has been called out before, and that's why they should be able to talk about those prior bad acts, because the state did open the door. I haven't released my pre-recordings, but I do note that the state in their opening statements stated that, oh, you guys are going to hear about past acts of abuse. I kind of do think that they opened the door for it, but the court says, no, we're going to follow the rules that we already talked about. You have to show the overt act before you can start talking about the prior acts, the prior bad acts of George. So Sarah essentially has to testify first. And then after that, that's when they started kind of what I would classify as a delay tactic, and saying, okay, well, we're not ready. We need exhibits marked. We need this. We need that, blah, 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 everything that they were doing. And then they go to lunch. The court agrees for them to get their exhibits together, and then they go to lunch. And then we'll go ahead and jump into the video that I started to play, but was not the video that I actually wanted to play. The defense comes back after lunch, and he has two more arguments as to why the court should let in prior bad acts before Sarah Boone actually testifies. So let me go ahead and have Bossy B bring us in on that. Okay, so defense, after lunch, before lunch, they argued that prior bad acts should be able to come in because the state opened the door with it, with the interview that they played and the police saying that they knew about the prior fights in between George and Sarah. That was denied. They go to lunch. They come back. The defense comes back and says, you know what? I got two other arguments as to why these prior bad acts need to be able to come in without Sarah testifying. And those arguments are in this video that I'm going to show you that I messed up on earlier, but we are in the right spot now. Here we go. We are on 1.5 speed. So y'all let me know if I need to slow it down.
Some moments later, that's how I feel when you cheat on me. And she's angry at him, and she's talking to him. She's talking to him in an intoxicated state, and she's expressing her anger and why she is angry. And I ought to be able to elaborate on what that is that she's angry about as it relates to the joke. That's my first motion.
Okay.
The second one is, Judge, on this.
Before you proceed with the second, is the second intertwined with the first?
No, I mean, it's a similar argument, but related to something else.
Okay. Response.
Judge, I don't disagree that they should be able to bring that in once they've established an overt act that is imminently dangerous to an objectively reasonable person. I think that's the law now.
Any other further arguments, sir?
Not on that issue.
Motion's denied. The court again is going to rely on the Supreme Court's guidance in these situations based on Holland 916-72750 at 1.760 through 761.
My second argument ties into what he just said about what a reasonable person would do under the circumstances facing an imminent threat, whether a reasonable person would receive the overt act on the part of George Torres that was witnessed by Sarah Boone, would that be perceived by someone as a imminent threat? And to some degree, you have to understand the history of George Torres and Sarah Boone. They were together 3.5 years. They were engaged, but there had been a history of violence. And from the evidence that's been presented, facing the circumstances in total, if you take what she said at various times, you would understand that she became concerned when he came back from Publix with that second bottle of wine, because she knew when George Torres gets to a certain level of intoxication, he gets sad, he gets moody, and eventually he gets belligerent, and sometimes he can be violent. So she knew when he brought home that second bottle of wine that it was not going to be a good night, and she tried to keep him occupied and tried to keep his mind off of his troubles, because she knew that if he reaches a certain level and is dwelling on his hardships, that he will react to her in a violent way. So she had that state of mind with that understanding of her history and his history in his overt act, which she's going to testify to, coupled with the fact of her state of mind based on her past experiences with him in that intoxicated state and the fact that he is violent. So she was hypersensitive to danger and fear. And I think that ought to be allowed in as part of her collectively.
So the excuses that we have, I think it kind of skipped through the first argument that he made, but the first argument was that he needs to be able to introduce the bad acts without Sarah testifying, without the overt act, because she stated in the videos, which the state again has already let in. First, they talked about the law enforcement video where they already let in. Now they're actually talking about that 2-minute video that has already been let in of Sarah stating, that's how I feel when you choke me. Just kind of like a general statement about her being choked as that prior incident that has already been put into evidence. So, and the state opening the door to that because they're the ones that played that video. The second argument is that Sarah in her mind knows how drunk George gets. And when she saw him come back with that second bottle of wine, she knows how he has gotten under the influence of alcohol before. So that in itself gives her justification, or gives the defense justification to talk about the prior acts, prior bad acts without the overt act, because it's Sarah's subjective mind. But still, Sarah has to testify to that before we get there, right? There hasn't been any evidence that has come out on that particular thing. I see where they're going with the videos, but they're kind of missing the mark. And the judge, you guys will see how the judge rules on that.
An overt act. So it was culminated by his state of intoxication, coupled with his overt act, created the well-founded fear for her to block the attack, to self-restrain or physically restrain George Torres in the suitcase, to actually use the bat to prevent him from getting out of the suitcase, because she knew she was going to get attacked.
And the basis of the opinion of about to be attacked is predicated on the prior incidences of violence,
Right,
correct?
Exactly.
Based on
Well, there's an overt
knowledge.
act committed by George Torres, but she was heightened because she knows when he gets to that level of intoxication in that scenario, and that's an issue.
So I need clarification.
The judge is irritated at this point, and I can definitely see why.
What is it that you're asking me to do?
For me to be able to elicit from Sarah Boone that she was concerned once that second bottle was brought, and that's why she tried to placate him over the course of the evening, and that's why she had a heightened sense that he was capable, Judge, due to his.
So her argument is, I gotta beat him before he beats me, and we'll get into it more when we get into her testimony.
Degree of intoxication that he may act violently towards her. The problem is, a lot of the problem is, Judge, he doesn't remember battering her the next day. That's part of the reason that she videotapes him and photographs him. She starts to document what happens so that she can show him. She loves the man. She adores the man. She wants to marry him. She wants a life with him. But she started being beat on. And so that all ties into her behavior, her sense of nervousness at that point. The reason she was so confident during that 2-minute video is because she knew, okay, this is my chance. He can't get to me. I can tell him exactly what he does that bothers me, that hurts me, and how I feel. And so that's all tied together with, he starts to try to get out of the suitcase, and she reacts the way she does.
Response.
We held these arguments already. The court has ruled. There are no new arguments being made. The court understands exactly what Sarah Boone, the defendant, said to Dr. Werner on October 2nd. The court knows exactly what the defendant said to Dr. Harper over the period of a number of months and years, and there was no overt act. The overt act has to be something that is objectively reasonable to cause a reasonable person to believe there's an imminent fear of great bodily harm or death. What the testimony is not that that's what has occurred, that her new testimony is this generalized fear, but you've already read that and you've already ruled on that. And I'll just remind the court that her previous testimony is, it's all fun and games, we're laughing, I zip the suitcase shut, we're still both laughing, it's funny, and then the decedent says, I can't breathe, and then she flips a switch, gets angry because it reminds her of all the times before where she is asserting that the decedent made her feel like she couldn't breathe, and then that's when she starts beating and shuffling the suitcase so much that it flips over and hitting him with the bat. We've covered this ground. Aggravated assault, aggravated battery, 2 independent forcible felonies. She's committing false imprisonment. She is the initial aggressor after there being no overt act. She can't start it and then say, well, I'm in fear of retaliation, because that's what her testimony was, is once I started doing these things, once I wouldn't let him out of the suitcase, I was afraid he would come out and harm me or kill me. Well, Judge, if I pull a gun on you and I say, give me everything you own on you right now, and then you in turn pull a gun on me and say, bam, 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 and shoot and kill me, and I shoot, let me strike that. You pull a gun on me to defend yourself, and then I shoot and kill you. I can't assert self-defense. I can't say, well, Judge Cranick pulled a gun on me and I was in fear of death, because I was the initial aggressor. I was committing a forcible felony. That's the facts of this case here, according to her previous testimony. And the state concedes if she wants to change her testimony again, that's one thing, and then we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But if she testifies as she previously has, the court has already ruled there's no overt act, and you've read the transcripts. You know what she has said.
Judge, she hasn't testified. She hasn't testified. Dr. Harper's testified. Dr. Warner's testified.
They have not testified. They've given deposition.
I love that. He was trying to be like, my client has not testified, but these people have testified. He's like, no, they haven't. The judge is like, I'm over this. The guy is scratching his head, like, wait, what the heck did I just say?
Well, given depositions, but she hasn't testified about the act in question. She hasn't testified about the event in question. She had consultations and evaluations by Dr. Harper where they had discussions that Dr. Harper could relate in her testimony. Dr. Warner can say what was said during the evaluation. Again, both of those were not recorded. There may be disputes. I disagree with his characterization of that assessment, but it's up to Sarah to tell the truth here today. She's under oath. She's under oath today. She's got an obligation to tell the truth. If he thinks she's made prior inconsistent statements, it's up to him to impeach her with those inconsistent statements.
To the extent that you are requesting permission to go into presumably and seemingly prior bad acts, vis-a-vis, he got the wine, and I know what happens when he gets it, and everything that follows from that, those are bad acts. Mm-hmm. That is character. Yes, and the Florida Supreme Court has provided guidance and circumstances, specifically in Holland, on what needs to be done. You're attempting to provide information that the defendant was apprehensive of the victim at the time of the homicide by virtue of the wine, et cetera, as you've proffered. That's bad character evidence that you're going to be bringing in. Historic bad character evidence. This is what happens when he drinks. This is what happens when I don't placate him. This is the situation that I find myself in, which inevitably may dovetail into prior incidents of abuse. That's all prohibited character under 404, 9404. And the carve out for that is if a overt act is established. It's not a subjective standard. It's an objective standard. The jury instruction, 3.6F, identifies it being an objective standard, and the Acquittal case specifically tells us that it's an objective standard. In Acquittal, the second DCA in 2023 stated the conduct of a person acting in self-defense is measured by an objective standard, but the standard must be applied to the facts and circumstances as they appeared at the time of the altercation to the one acting in self-defense. I'm going to rely on Holland. Holland is the law of the land. It is what the Supreme Court has told us to utilize. That's what I will be relying on. The overt act has to be established.
Ms. Boone, do you understand that?
I do.
Okay. Anything else?
Okay, so did y'all hear at the end of that where her attorney turns on the record and say, Ms. Boone, did you understand that? And that lets you know that Sarah is pushing this. What about when they said this? What about saying this? You should be able to go forward without putting me on the stand or without putting me on the stand first, because all of these things have already come in. So the defense is literally showing that his client, in my opinion, this is what it's showing, his client is being unreasonable. And we're going to see that a little bit later on in the case as well. Sarah Boone is pushing this guy to get this evidence in that does not need to come in. And I think that the defense attorney is starting to have a difficult time with Sarah. That's just my opinion based on the things that he is getting on the record. There was no reason for him to have an outburst and say, Sarah, do you understand that? For everyone to hear and for that to go on the record. He is trying to make sure he's covering his butt so that she doesn't try to appeal this mess. Y'all let me know what y'all think. I think that the defense knows that this lady is driving him into potentially, bankruptcy or losing his law firm or whatever it may be that comes up. I honestly forgot what my next clip is, but we're going to figure it out when we press play. Let me go ahead and get it all teed up so that we can share it. Again, go ahead and drop your comments down below. Let me know what y'all think of the case so far. This is the next one that I want, but I really can't tell y'all what it's about. Oh, it's her testifying about what happened once she got him in the suitcase and how she describes the event. So let me go ahead and have Bossy B bring us in, and we're going to go ahead and jump right into that. All right, so we got Sarah Boone finally on the witness stand. I am not going to go through her full testimony because she was on the witness stand for like 4 hours or more. And we're not going to go through all of the nonsense. What I did find interesting about her testimony is that her defense attorney kind of led her through her entire testimony. The defense attorney was testifying, and the state did try to object and got overruled on like the basic facts of the situation. But then the defense continued to do it regarding the important facts out of the case, which I thought was not a good idea. But the state also doesn't want to continue to object and keep getting overruled on, because that just kind of makes him look annoying. But at some point, he needed to be able to object to the leading questions. Like I said, this attorney was testifying for her behalf. And then every once in a while, he'll throw in like a question like, you did this, this, and that. Were you not? Or you were this, this, and that. Were you not? And then she can say yes, yes, yes. Her whole testimony was yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And one other thing that I found annoying, I don't know if I can say I find it annoying. One other thing I'm going to say I found it annoying about her testimony is like he would ask her like a yes or no. When he did ask her a yes or no question that was not leading, she then tried to add in extra facts, and then the state will object to it as, you know, not answering the question, not responsive, and then the court will sustain those. So you could tell like she's probably been practicing this for like the last 5 years to get the details on the record that she wants on the record, but it's not really flowing between her and her attorney, in my opinion. So let's see what Sarah Boone has to say. What happened on the day of that incident? We already heard it in the detectives' interviews, and for the most part, it's going to be pretty much the same, but her reaction is going to be what's a little different. So let's see what she has to say. I believe I'm in the right spot, so hopefully I am. Let me get the volume up, and let's get big, and let's show.
Okay. So it'd been down there a week, so it was already down there.
Yes, George brought it down.
Okay. So you said that you got down there, you're looking for him, you see him settling into the suitcase.
Yes.
What did you do?
In my head, I said, oh man, we're obviously not going to be going to sleep anytime soon. And I walked over, and he was trying to get himself flat, so I couldn't tell that he was in there. And then
Now, let me stop you there. The suitcase, is it the suitcase over here in the
yes,
box? You've seen it, you saw it.
yes,
It's a pretty big suitcase.
yes.
How big is George?
George was my height. And
How tall are you?
I'm 5'3".
Okay. And how much did George weigh?
I thought it was 100 pounds.
Okay. And how much did you weigh?
I was 98 pounds.
All right. Do you agree you put on some weight?
Since I've been incarcerated, yes.
Well,
Why are you asking this lady if she put on some weight? It's like the jury is not going to believe that you was 100 pounds. So let me go ahead and acknowledge the fact that you are no longer 100 pounds. Like there was absolutely no reason for him to say this. I did forget to say this earlier though. I kind of feel like the defense attorney is trying to get her convicted. Like some of the questions that he asked, I'm like, whose side are you on? Like there's definitely a strategy in like getting in front of issues before the prosecution can bring it up. But I don't feel like that's what he's doing. I feel like he's like, oh, that's when you stop the attack. Like, why would you use the language, that's when you stop the attack, when she just clearly said that she poked him with a bat? You should have said, is that when you stop poking him, right? Because she's trying to minimize her involvement in the situation. But her attorney is like, no, you was attacking that guy. So there's a couple of things that come out while defense is interviewing his own client. And I'm like, whose side are you really on? Let's get back into it. Sarah's rendition of what happened that night.
at the time, though, y'all were pretty skinny.
Yes.
So from the pictures, it looks like y'all were both pretty thin.
Yes.
All right. So because of his thinness, is that how? And he's a small man.
Yes.
Okay. So he was able to get in the suitcase on his own.
Yes.
Did he willingly get in the suitcase?
He was already in there.
Okay. When you got to him, did he see you?
Yes.
All right. Tell us what happened.
I mean, it just kind of, I zipped him up. We thought it was funny. And we're joking about how he was small enough to fit inside of the suitcase.
All right. So what happened then?
From there, it was just, we were laughing about it. And it was just strange that he was small enough to fit in there. And then I kind of moved it around a little bit with him in the suitcase still. It was still funny that he was still in the suitcase. Just, I think he and I were just kind of, couldn't believe that he could fit in the suitcase.
Did you eventually close the top?
Yes, in order for, well, the top was already closed. As he was settling himself in there, that's how I knew he was in there, was because the top was kind of flopping a little bit.
So he had gotten in there to hide, and he pulled the top.
Yes.
On top of it, but you could tell he was in there.
Yes.
You saw him right away.
Unrelated note, I don't think that her voice matches her face. Like, am I tripping? I don't know why I thought her voice would be like a little bit deeper, if that's the right word. But her voice is very like high pitched and honestly dainty. And to me, not to, judge her or anything, but she doesn't look like her voice would sound like that. I might be tripping, but y'all let me know what you think.
All right. So at some point, did you zip him up?
Yes.
And what was he saying or doing when you were zipping him up?
I just thought it was funny.
Were you both laughing?
Yes.
And so you zipped him up. Were y'all still laughing once you zipped him up?
Yes.
Tell the jury what happened then.
From there, I moved the suitcase around a couple of times, just kind of on the wheels and moved it around. And at that point, it was funny. We were joking and laughing about it.
Or now, eventually, did you go sit down on the couch and get your phone?
Yes.
That's something.
Well, the suitcase had, from me moving it around, was flopped over. So while it was like that, I thought at that point I had a moment to, I guess, take the time to talk to him while I guess he was not able to get out for a moment.
So you flipped it. You got it on the top, right?
Yeah.
It gets in, but at some point you flip it over. So the zipper is on the bottom.
Well, it was just kind of how I was moving it around, and it ended up kind of flopping. So
It was upside down.
yes,
So after you did that, what did you do?
that's when I went over and decided to videotape to just see the, I guess, the gist in it for him to understand that right now I feel safe and right now I have the ability to actually speak to you in a manner that normally I would not have the ability to do.
And you were intoxicated.
And why you following up with "and you're intoxicated"? I was gonna say something, and then that just kind of slid in there, and I'm like, really? Why would you do that? It's Sarah. This man is in a suitcase. Why is now the time to have a serious conversation with him while he's in the suitcase and you're drunk? This is the perfect time for you to explain to him how you're feeling. That's what you want us to believe. I don't know about that. That's her story, and she's sticking to it.
Yes.
And you would agree that you said some things you should not.
Yes.
But you realized he could not get out and get at you. Is that fair?
At that moment, yes.
So it goes on for about 10 minutes.
Yes.
You heard it here today, did you not?
Yes.
You heard his voice as he was speaking from the suitcase.
Yes.
That was his voice on the video and audio.
Yes.
And you heard your voice on the video and audio.
Yes.
That was your voice.
Yes.
All those things said by the man were said by George in that 2-minute video.
Correct.
All the words said by the female were said by you in that 2-minute video.
Correct.
Were you intending on showing him the video the next day?
Yes.
At the time or the next day, is it fair to say you don't even remember a videotape?
I do not.
This is so stupid. Like, the defense, like, even going forward with this story, it just makes no sense to me. Okay. She was going to show him the video the next day, but she doesn't even remember making the video. But at that time, you knew you needed to explain to him. 5 years later, now you remember that you needed to explain to him why he needs to stop treating you bad. And we have the recording. And at no point is she telling him to stop treating her bad. She's saying, she's kind of taunting him about being in there. Yeah, she's mentioning some things she believes happened or that happened to her from him. But it's not like, hey, when you choked me, it made me feel really bad. Or him saying, oh, I can't breathe. That's how you made me feel. Can you please stop choking me? She didn't do any of that. She just kind of was like, nah, I'm going to antagonize you. I'm going to taunt you. And I'm going to make you suffer. That's what that was to me. Y'all let me know if y'all feel the same or if y'all think different or if I'm wrong, let me know.
So from what you can tell from watching it, did that refresh your memory about that event?
It did.
Why did you say all that?
Okay, and then so they're going to go and kind of talk about how she got.
Looks like the attorneys are
Sorry. I'm watching one where they kind of give some commentary themselves too. So let me actually mute that and move it along so that we can talk about it in a second. But what was I going to say? I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, I think this is probably when they're going to jump into whether they're going to let the overt act in or not, but I can't quite remember. And I kind of lost my train of thought of what I was about to say about her testimony. Okay, so she locks him in a case or the suitcase, and then she's kind of claiming that she's doing it so that she can show her position about where they are and wanting to be treated better. But I don't think this is the most effective way to do it. You're saying that you get afraid of him when he's drunk. Why don't you leave the premises? Why don't you not participate? Why do you put him in a suitcase and start beating him up? Like, I just don't understand how we get to that point. I know I said I wasn't going to really read some comments, but I am going to go ahead and jump into some of the comments so that we can start clearing some of them as I wait for the people to come back on. Oh, no, I guess I can kind of. Okay, it's going to be soon. This is just a couple more minutes, but let me go ahead and see. Tiny D said, or Destined to Be says, I think he could have gotten in himself, but then she wouldn't let him out. I think that he did get in himself and then she didn't let him out. That's where the issue becomes. It's an act of omission, which her attorney argues for the state. I don't know why they do that, but they argue it for the state that it's an act of omission. Yes, he might have gotten there voluntarily, but it stopped turning voluntary when he started saying he couldn't breathe and you start beating him up. Like, it's no longer voluntary at that point. So let's jump back into her testimony here. Oh, are we there yet? Or are we not there yet? We're going to be there in a little bit if they, oh, you know what is the problem? I have it on mute. That would help me know what's going on if I turn the video up.
Well, I'm talking about just the 2-minute video part that was recorded. Could you just tell the jury?
And so they were clarifying because they asked one of these loose-ended questions that both the state and the prosecution has been, or sorry, that's the same person. The prosecution and the defense has done this where they ask a question, but it's vague. It doesn't make sense. It's not a clear question. And so the prosecution took them back over to the sidebar because he was saying, why did you say all of that? Say all of that. Say it when. What are you talking about? So now they're referring just to the 2-minute video.
What you were feeling, what your feelings were at the time, and then explain that to the jury. You mentioned, you talked about it before. You said he was in that confined space and it was my chance. But is that, you want to elaborate on that? Or?
Sure. I want you all to know that the majority of the time, I'm always afraid and always scared.
All right. Well,
she's always afraid and always scared. Of what?
I understand that. Yeah, I understand that. But would it be fair to say that he had some anger?
I feel like she feels like this is like her time to shine. Like turning to the jury and being like, I want y'all to understand that I'm always afraid and always scared. Afraid and scared of what? She does it again a little later, or I don't know when she said it, but she said, we know as parents. Like, this is not your TED Talk, ma'am. It's literally not a TED Talk.
I did.
Would it be fair to say that you wanted to tell him off to some degree?
I just wanted, yes, for him to have a better understanding, which was the whole point of the videos and documentation prior.
And you could tell that he was uncomfortable.
I'm guessing.
And did you want him to feel some uncomfort?
I did.
Okay. Now, at some point, you turned off the video.
Yes.
And then we saw a second video, which is approximately 11 minutes later. And you've seen that video displayed to the jury. It was 22 seconds long.
Yes.
And I don't think you speak in that video. You hear Jorge say Sarah one time.
Yes.
Is that fair to say?
Yes.
So between the 2-minute video and the 22-second video is an 11-minute period. Would you tell the jury what happened?
We continued.
Y'all see when we get to the state side, she completely acts like she doesn't know what the heck the state is talking about on this time period. But now she's going to give us a very detailed recounting of what happened in this 9 to 11 minutes. The state says 9, state says 9, defense says 11 minutes, and she's going to tell us how the video shifted from her taunting him in the suitcase to now he is the aggressor, and we're getting into what the overt act is.
To, I guess, speak to one another, and his tone changed, and I knew the tone, and we ended up.
And she's talking about his tone change. Does she not hear her own tone in the video before this discussion where they continue to talk to each other is what she's classifying it as? I don't think it was talking from the beginning.
I guess arguing back and forth with one another, and it was the things that he was saying very much frightened me, and cursing at me and threatening me. And
Did he want you to let him out of the suitcase?
I'm sure so.
Go ahead, tell me the.
And it got very heated very quickly, and he continued to push on the suitcase. And my fear was that he was going to break out of the suitcase, knowing that it was a broken suitcase. And
Her fear was that he was going to try to get out of being locked in a suitcase. Duh! Who wouldn't try to get out of a suitcase that they're locked in?
his hand started to come through. His hand started to come through this way. And so I shook the suitcase. Trying to get his hand to go back in, shaking it, and telling him that, please stop doing this. Please stop doing this to me. Please stop doing this to me.
So his hand actually got out of the suitcase.
Yes.
And you went to the suitcase.
Yes.
And shook it.
Yes.
Did that force his
Y'all,
hand to go back in?
No.
Why would it go back? Why would his hand go back in from you shaking a suitcase? Your hand, like if you shake it, it's just gonna do that. Like it's not gonna make it. Like this is not like you're trying to shuffle some noodles in a strainer here. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a person with an arm with muscles that is reaching their hand out, literally trying to get out. And the audacity of you to say, stop doing this to me when you have him locked in the suitcase is wild. It's wild behavior. Let's get back into it.
So you're shaking it. Were you shaking it to try to get the suitcase, his hand back in?
Yes.
How long did you shake it?
I don't know.
But his hand was still out.
Yes.
Was he trying to get out?
Forcefully, yes.
Was he angry at you?
Yes.
Were you in fear?
Always.
If he would have gotten out of the suitcase,
Always in fear.
what would he have done to you?
So just her saying she's always in fear. I'm sorry. Her saying she's always in fear is basically would have given her the right to do this to him, stab him, shoot him at any time because she's just always in fear of him. That's not how this works. Okay, that is literally not how it works. But
He used to tell me he would have made me unrecognizable, or I would have lost my life.
Did you lose the grip on the suitcase?
Yes.
Where was the bat in relation to the suitcase?
It was leaning against the dining room table right there.
How far was the bat from the suitcase?
3 feet, 2 feet.
Was his hand still out of the suitcase?
Yes.
And was he getting out of the suitcase?
He very much was trying, yes.
And so what did you do?
that question was misleading. Was he getting out of the suitcase? No, he wasn't. He was crumpled into that thing. He's not getting out of that suitcase by putting his hand out, okay?
For the split second reaction that I had,
And at this point, is it still face down? How would he get out of the suitcase at that point? That would make it even harder to unzip, in my opinion.
happened to see that, and I grabbed the baseball bat and was trying to poke his hand to go back in, to please don't break through, please. So I hit his hand.
Did you hit the outside part of his hand?
Yes.
We've seen the photographs of his left hand. Did you cause the bruising there?
I'm guessing yes.
Now, you've seen the bat. It's a youth bat.
Yes, I bought it for my son.
Is this the bat you used?
Yes.
And you said you poked him with it?
Yes, I kind of pushed, like I held it with the skinny part here, and then
So grip here.
So you hit him. You're forcefully pushing the bat at a man in the suitcase. I think she was in there like whacking that guy, but she's going, I pushed him. That, I don't think it makes it better.
at it. Yes.
And like with the bruising that he had, I highly doubt she was just jamming him like that.
You grabbed it with both hands here,
Yes.
and then the barrel of the bat, the big part of the bat is here.
Correct.
And you thrusted it into the different areas of the suitcase?
I started with his hand, and his hand, he was still trying to get out. He was still trying to do that. So I started to push on the suitcase around it, hoping to have his hand retract and go back inside.
But why would he not try to get out? Like, why would he not
made
try
those
to get
injuries.
out?
I did.
We've seen the photographs.
Yes.
We see the bruising. Is that from that bat?
Yes.
Eventually, did his hand go back inside from you doing?
Yes. Finally, he had subsided and retracted his hand.
So in your mind, did you prevent him from attacking you?
Absolutely. Split second decision.
Now, once he retracted his hand, do you remember zipping it up some? Or what did you do in relation? Because he was upside down, was he not, at that point?
Yes,
At some point, you flipped him back up.
I did.
Tell how that happened.
He wasn't cursing. He wasn't threatening. His hand was inside foremost. There was no more of him trying to break through the suitcase. So I felt safe enough to turn it back over. It wasn't happening anymore.
You went back to the video and couch,
I did, yes.
and you saw the second video,
Yes,
the 22-second, and he's right side up again,
yes,
and you hear him say, Sarah,
yes,
had you left enough room for him to get out? Zipper to zipper.
yes. That's how his hand was trying.
That suitcase has 2 zippers, doesn't it? And they meet at various places along the line.
Correct.
How much room, when you flipped it over, how much room was between zipper to zipper?
I don't know specifically. I mean, it was enough to where his hand was coming out.
After you had hit him with the bat, was he not trying to get out anymore?
No,
So if he wasn't trying to get out anymore, was he not a threat at that point, right? Right?
Did you believe that he could breathe in there?
yes,
Did you ever believe he could die in there?
no, at all.
Were you trying to kill him?
Never.
Did you want to kill him?
I did not.
Why did you believe he can breathe in there when he was telling you that he could not breathe? They still not tying that together. Oh, I thought he was lying to me.
Did you walk upstairs?
I did, yes.
Okay, and then they talk about going back upstairs and her not letting him out, not hearing him say anything else to her, and then they call for break to figure out whether they're going to let the overt act in. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I still do not believe her story. So I'm gonna have Bossy B bring us in to the next part of talking about the overt act. I think I was going to play the arguments, but I don't think I am going to do that now. Should I do that? The scintilla evidence part of things. I don't think so. I don't think I'm going to go into that just to kind of save me some time here. So let's have Buzzy B bring us in. Where you at, girl? Okay, and then we get into the argument of the overt act. The state says that there has been no overt act. Him putting his hand out is not enough to claim that it's an overt act. She basically created the situation herself. She cannot then claim self-defense for him basically trying to get away. The defense obviously argues that her knowing the history of him and then also him reaching out and trying to prevent him from hurting her again, that is the overt act or him putting his hand out was enough to put her in reasonable fear that he was going to get her. The judge comes back and say with the scintilla, whatever, however you say it, of evidence, just him putting his hand outside of the suitcase was enough. I don't agree with that. I don't think that's an overt act to try to defend yourself from someone who's beating you. Like literally you're saying he can't even try to help himself and get away from her. At that point, if he would have got out of the suitcase, he might have felt the need to run away because he's weak. He's locked in the suitcase. He can't breathe, all of the above, right? But the court said that that was enough in order to say that it was an overt act. Again, it's similar to everyone making the motions for an acquittal. It's kind of like routine at that point. The court is going to allow the case to go forward, and then the jury will be able to give the situation the weight that they believe is necessary in the case. And I'm hoping, of course, that they do not give it the weight that they're hoping for. And so I talked about, and we'll have Bossy B bring us into the next portion of this this video here. Where you at, girl? Okay, and then so Sarah continues to testify. I'm not going to watch the rest of her testimony. I will admit, I did actually start to feel bad for her in the photos that they were showing, in the incidences that she has been in with George. And I'm not saying that George is innocent. I am saying that Sarah was not justified in leaving him in that suitcase at that moment. At that point, she was the aggressor. It sounded like they kind of had a back and forth abusive relationship. And not to say that maybe she was, I'm not saying not to say, but maybe she was the victim most of the time. But in this incident, she was actually the initial aggressor in the incident. And the courts can find, if there's restraining orders against both people, is that both people were the initial aggressors or the main aggressors in different circumstances. So restraining orders are needed against both of them. In this situation, with how aggravated this was and the fact that Sarah had previously been arrested for an incident that she also had with George, I would say that she probably was the primary aggressor in at least some of the incidences, especially this one being it. And even like I said, or I haven't said it, I said it on a pre-record that I haven't finished editing yet, but what I said was, I've completely forgot. Oh, she could have done a lot in order to get out of this situation. So she got him locked up into the suitcase, and the prosecution did a good job at asking this question. Why did you not call law enforcement and say, hey, I locked this guy in the suitcase for this long. I am afraid that he's going to hurt me because we have had all of these other issues in the past. That could have gave her at least some leeway of protection until she basically let him back into her life, because they had made up and break up a couple of times because they are in this kind of abusive relationship. There was restraining order. There was a felony, or not a felony. I don't know if it was a felony. There was a case against George for abusing domestic violence against Sarah Boone, but somehow they're still together. So was that restraining order dropped? So they would make up and break up. So she would at least be safe for that time, that moment in time, if she would have called the police. But what she knew, although drunk, my assumption would be that what she knew was that she would be the one getting arrested, because you have this guy locked in a suitcase and you beat him, and then you're going to call the police and say, I am scared of him because I beat him. You are going to be protected because you're going to jail. You are going to jail tonight. So at least for the night that you're in jail, you would be protected. And then from there, they would have to figure out how to, or she would have to figure out how to keep herself safe and to stay away from George. So she didn't do that. And then we'll get into them also asking, she called Brian Boone. Did she not tell him that she locked him in the suitcase? On her direct, she stated she called him, but she didn't remember what she said. But then when asked on cross, she stated, I believe I told him about putting George in the suitcase. So which one is it? And we'll get into her testimony and how it just doesn't line up, but she just keeps flip-flopping. Like I said, I started to feel bad for her. He stabbed her in the leg. That one was insane. Pushed her onto a sharp rock. That was insane. Kind of bruised up the side of her body. She claims he dragged her down the stairs. I don't know if that's true. Claimed that he hit her in the head with a metal rod while she was sleeping. Like, these are some crazy things. Broke the TV with a bat that she had a video of. I don't know why they didn't show the video. They just showed the pictures of the still frames of the video. But he did some stuff to her, okay? I'm not saying that this man is innocent. I just think that she did have a depraved heart when she left him in the suitcase. And I see why she is arguing battered spouse syndrome, because it's like, okay, they've taken so much and now finally they've reacted. But in this situation, she's described it for us. This was a happy time. They were having fun. There was no issues, right? And then all of a sudden, oh, now I'm going to flip on him, and now I'm the one that's going to, show my aggression, so show my dominance in this moment. So what was I talking about? The overt act. Oh, I'm sorry. The rest of Sarah's testimony is what I was on that one. So she goes on through it. I start to feel bad for her. I'm like, okay, I think that she is going to gain the jury sympathy with the things that she went through with George. And then she also testified to the fact that she was telling George's brother Juan that he choked her kind of like a few days earlier. And was like, tell him how you choked him, tell him how you choked me. And that was the same day of the incident. But when she testified, she was like, oh, we were having a great day. I encouraged him to call his family. But while he was calling out his family, I started antagonizing him, saying, tell him how you choked me. Or was it a joke when she's like, oh, tell him when you choked me. That was so fun. Like, in what context was she telling him that he choked him in the past? And then they go and drink wine together. Like, it's a lot of things going on. You guys are building puzzles, having fun, all of these things. It's just not lining up. But she wanted to testify that it was happy. They were having a good time. I think she would have been better off testifying like, okay, they had ups and downs that day, but they were on the up at the point of the suitcase. And what it sounds like to me is that she was still mad at potentially being choked a couple of days ago, or a couple of things that happened to her in the past. And so she retaliated. That's what this comes off to me as. let's go ahead and jump into, y'all know what it is. Go ahead and drop in the comments what y'all think so far. We are going to jump into the prosecution interviewing Sarah Boone, and y'all dropping y'all chats. I am going to cover them at the end of the video. And if y'all haven't hit the like button, please do. I haven't said that the entire stream, but shout out to y'all, because we are at 31 likes with 25 people watching live. So y'all are already doing amazing. But if you haven't hit the like button, please do. It does help us out. And we are trying to get the channel bumping. Okay. Anyways, let me go ahead and play the video. I actually need to share the screen. So there's that. Bree, get it together. I think this one is the one that I need. Yep, that's the one. We are going to make you big and or sound loud and big and sped up, or that's too sped up. Okay, so we are now into getting Bossy B to bring us in. All right, so we are now into the prosecution grilling Sarah Boone. I'll be honest with y'all. I did not think that the prosecution was going to grill her, because he has not been lending things for me. He has not been tying things together for me, but he did kind of come at her, you know, smokes, guns blazing, and got her to trip up on a lot of her testimony and made her come off as very defensive and not wanting to answer questions. At one point, he's like, you know darn gone well what I'm talking. He didn't say that, but he dang near said that. You know darn well what I'm talking about. You better answer the question. I don't know if we're going to cover it in the clip that I got right now, but he did say something to that degree. Let's go ahead and add you to the stage and get into Sarah Boone's cross-examination. And where, like I said, the defense messed her up on this is that he led her through her entire testimony. She didn't really get a chance to speak. And when she did have the opportunity to speak, she was not lending, to me, she was not lending what she was trying to get across. She was a little bit confused and didn't really know where to go with her story. And I think that messed her up when the prosecution came, because prosecution is not leading her through it. Tell me what you mean. Tell me what you meant. Give me the real story. And he was having her trip up over herself. And that's my opinion on it.
I believe so, yes.
Did you find these communications?
I believe I found one or two of them from some of them.
And did you send?
My bad. It's starting off with the prosecution going through people's names that they saw in the phone, because Sarah Boone testified earlier that that George never actually physically cheated on her, but what he did do was watch like adult porn, and he would message people or that he would watch porn, and she considered that to be cheating. And so he kind of comes in guns blazing like, okay, well, what about this girl? What about this girl? What about this girl? Of course, Sarah denies that she knows any of them, which would we be surprised if she admitted to anything at this point? Let's jump into it.
A long letter to his family to relate to him about George and his girls that he was cheating on you with.
I believe so.
Okay, so you do know those names, right?
I don't remember them. It's been however long.
Okay. Now, on February 24th, 2020, you called 911 at about 1 p.m., correct?
Yes.
And at that point, you were still feeling a little intoxicated, were you not?
It was more shocking, yes.
So you agree that you previously stated, I was still, I believe, intoxicated to a degree?
To a degree, yes.
So 1 p.m., it's about 14 hours after 11 p.m. the night before, correct?
I'm guessing so.
Well, 12 hours prior would be 1 a.m., and then 12 a.m. is 13 hours, 11 p.m. is 14 hours, correct?
Okay.
And you were present here for the medical examiner, Dr. Zadovich, to testify, correct?
Yes.
And you heard her talk about all the effects of ethanol that it has on the human body, correct?
Yes.
And she also mentioned something that it, on average, dissipates at about 0.015 an hour. Do you recall that?
I believe so.
Okay. So would it be fair to say that if you're still feeling the effects of the alcohol at 1 p.m., so 14 hours, 0.015, you were at approximately about 0.21 at 11 p.m. the night before. Do you feel like you were 2.5 times the legal limit at that time?
I don't know how you came to that number.
Judge, I'm object.
Crunch.
Okay, Bree. Sorry, y'all. I keep muting myself. Basically, what they were talking about was the night before, around like 1 a.m., they were drinking a mega pint of, it's probably not a mega pint, but one of those big bottles of the wine, and they got halfway through it. And so the state is trying to tie, they finished that around 1 a.m. the morning leading into the day where the nighttime, the suitcase incident happened. So they drank that half a bottle, they did some things around the house, then they started drinking again, is essentially where they're going within like a 24-hour period. I don't know where he got that blood alcohol level for. It's already out there. They objected to it, but it's already out there that they was lit the night before. So let's see where they go from there.
Which just began a moment ago as she had.
Oh, sorry. It's still on the person talking on Fox News. So we'll wait until it actually starts. I chose this one because I felt like they will be a little bit less aggressive with being like, that's my video kind of thing. But maybe they won't, because they give their own little opinion throughout it as well. So maybe, but I just don't want to do on crime. That's why we have this guy popping up every once in a while telling us stuff. God dang, this is loud as heck. Let me get my life together, because that is too loud for me. So let me know if y'all can hear that okay. So basically just showing her the wine bottles. I wish I could like skip forward a little bit, but I don't want to skip forward too much.
This is one of the 3 bottles that was purchased between February 22nd and the 2 that were purchased on February 23rd, 2020.
I'm guessing it is like the bottle is.
All right, and it's 1.5 liters. Would you agree?
And so she's going to tell him how much they drank through the bottle. And she kind of makes it look worse for herself,
And
but at
when
least
you say
she's
half,
honest.
talking about the top of the label was left from the day before.
Oh, goodness, no.
All right, a little less, halfway through the label.
Right about.
Okay, about halfway through. So in addition to halfway through the label, which you began consuming after going to public at about 12:15, correct?
Oh, yeah.
So you all would have began consuming around 12:30. Is it fair to say when you got back?
I can't call exactly.
And now she doesn't know what time they started drinking. And they're going to go through this loop for a while.
And after finishing what you all had left over from Saturday, the 2 of you consumed 2 1.5-liter bottles, correct?
I'm not sure about the second bottle that he purchased, if it was empty or not at the time.
We did mention that the police would find 2 empty bottles in the top of your trash, correct?
Yes.
And we did all see that in the photographs, correct?
See that
Two.
they get the garbage in. So
All right, and you say you were about 100 pounds at the time? And we all know Mr. Torres was 103 pounds at the time of his death, correct?
that's what I say.
All right, so that's 3 liters of wine between 200 pounds split between 2 people over the course of a day, correct?
Yes.
And you testified today that you were intoxicated at the time that this occurred, the videos between 11 and 11:30 at night, correct?
Yes, at some level, yes.
Now, what does that mean to you? Previously, have you indicated that that means the room is spinning? Do you ever recall saying that?
I do.
So what was your level of intoxication at this point in time when the first video was filmed at 11:12 p.m.?
Do you mean from lack of sleep or alcohol?
From the alcohol.
What was my level?
What were you feeling? Did you have trouble with your balance?
Here she go playing
I
around.
was more tired than anything.
Did you have trouble with your balance?
Drunk.
I don't believe so.
So you were able to flip a suitcase over with a 100-pound man in it, right?
I mean, yes, it happened,
Okay. How about your speech? Do you feel like your speech was slurred?
clearly.
How about your inhibitions? Do you feel like you were doing things that you wouldn't do when you were sober?
I wasn't thinking about that.
Well, on reflection, do you feel like this is something you would have done when you were sober?
I didn't know me and George.
I'm just asking you, looking back on this, when he's in the suitcase and you're telling him how you feel, and then you wait 11 minutes and you film another 22 seconds and then you go upstairs, upon reflection, is that something you would have done and left him in there had you not been drinking?
I don't know. I can't say.
Okay.
If I was scared, then it would be something.
Okay. All right. Now, today you testified about the time frame between the 2 videos, correct?
Yes.
So you came down from the shower where you were hiding, correct?
Yes.
And as you're coming down the stairs, before you even get to the bottom of the stairs, you can kind of see over your shoulder or towards your right that he's trying to hide in the suitcase, correct?
Yes.
And the lid is down, but it's not closed, and you can tell he's hiding in there. It's not a great hiding spot just yet, right?
Correct.
And so you come over to him, and you're laughing, right?
Yes.
And you move the suitcase around some before zipping it shut, right?
No.
No? You immediately zip it shut?
Yes.
Okay. And you're both still laughing about it, correct?
Correct.
All right. And then it's during this course of time, how quickly is it after you zip it shut that you begin filming the first video?
I don't know without watching it. I don't know.
And then here she goes. Here she goes. Now, all of a sudden, her memory is going to get really foggy. So she was very clear. If you guys remember, she was very clear in her testimony and her agreeing with her attorney testifying for her. Very clear on what happened that night. And she remembers it and she wants us to believe her. Now her memory is going to get really, really foggy, okay? And the prosecution does a good job at calling her out on it.
No.
Okay. I mean, the video's not going to catch you zipping him up because you're like 10 feet away, right? How quickly after you zip him up is it before the video starts is my question.
I don't know.
Okay. And then during that 9 minutes and 14 seconds is when he begins to get angry, correct?
What 9 minutes?
Between the two videos, there's 9 minutes and 14 seconds between the end of 1061 and the beginning of 1062 and 1063. So you got the 2 minute, 3 second video that starts at 11:12:45, correct?
I guess.
Permission to use state 17?
You may.
She act like she don't know what's going on. What's going on at all? She's like, I guess that's what happened. You know that's what happened. You know that's what happened. Okay? Let's get sorry, y'all. I just didn't want him to start talking, giving his commentary on the channel. He's just trying to pull up the whole time log thing that they brought in through the digital expert, the digital analyst, I guess we can call her.
All right, so we're looking at entry 31107.
And I just want to note, remember when her attorney brought up the whole 11-minute, what happened in between, and she started telling us how she started punching him with the bat or poking him with the bat or whatever. She knew exactly what he was talking about. Now when the prosecution is talking about it, she has no idea what he's talking about.
That indicates, according to the phone extraction, 2/23/2020, 11:12:45 p.m., image underscore 1062 movie begins being captured. And we've seen that that is about 2 minutes and 3 seconds. Entry 31113 indicates that image underscore 1063.move. That was disconnected.
He's trying to get his little life together so that he can start asking her the next couple questions, but I don't want to skip through it because I don't know how long it's going to take for him to get to his point at this point. So here we go.
31113, a second movie is captured at 11:23:03 p.m. Your testimony was that after that first video was captured by your phone and you, Mr. Torres began getting angry and trying to push his way out, correct?
Say it one more time, please.
Between these two movies, of which there's about 9 minutes and 14 seconds, Mr. Torres begins to get angry and try and push his way out and get out of the suitcase, correct?
He had been angry on and off throughout the entire day.
Okay. You didn't tell us that earlier. You said it was a
There we
wonderful,
go.
fun day all day, correct?
That's because I lived.
Okay. But you did not tell us
Did
earlier.
you say that's because I lived that it was a fun day? Girl, this is not going to reflect well for you.
Today that he had been angry throughout the day.
When would I say that?
You described your entire day of doing puzzles, arts and crafts, and outside by the dartboard, and you said it was a wonderful day and everything was fun until he was in the suitcase. Did you not testify to that earlier today?
I did.
Yeah, you did. You did.
My specific question between these two movies is, this is when he begins to get angry and trying to push his way out and to get out of the suitcase, correct?
Angry again, yes.
Dude,
And he was expressing his
what you
anger
said.
in what manner? How did he say this?
At which point throughout the day?
Ma'am, you know very well that I'm talking about between these movies. Please answer my question. Between these two movies, how did he express?
You know darn well what I'm talking about, Sarah. But he said, you know very well, ma'am. Answer my question.
His anger with you?
Told me that I was going to fucking die.
Okay. Now this is happening after he's already told you several times he cannot breathe in the suitcase, correct?
Correct.
And he's been in there for whatever brief amount of time it took you to zip him up, and the laughter stops, and then you go over and begin to film, correct? And you're filming. Your purpose of filming is to kind of teach him a lesson. This is your chance to say something to him when he can't say anything back to you, correct?
No.
Then correct me.
Yeah,
There
correct
was no
him.
lesson to be learned. It was just I wanted him to try to understand how I felt, so maybe he could progress in being a better person the next day.
Makes no sense. Teach him a
So
lesson.
you wanted him to understand how you felt in the past, and that's not teaching a lesson?
Yes, good job, prosecution. You wanted him to understand how you felt, but you don't consider that teaching a lesson? Yeah, you're teaching him a lesson. You're trying to teach him how to be a better person by locking him in a suitcase and then beating him into compliance.
I just wanted him to understand.
All right, and so immediately
When you want
Prior to-
someone, sorry, y'all. When you want someone to
Zipping him
understand, you're teaching them a lesson. You're teaching them something, right? You want them to understand.
in putting him into the movie, you had been upstairs, correct?
I'm sorry.
Immediately before coming down and zipping him up, and then filming the first of the two movies, you had been upstairs in the shower, correct?
Yes.
I'm going to publish what has been labeled as image_1061, which according to the timeline was captured at 11:03 p.m. 31 seconds with her device.
And here she goes. This is where her memory is about to get more foggy than it's already been. She wants us to believe she remembers everything else perfectly, but this she does not remember. Okay, y'all? And y'all let me know whether y'all
Does this
will
appear to
believe
be
her testimony.
the suitcase that's in question in the two movies that are filmed at 11:12 and 11:23 p.m.? Huh?
Yeah, just trying to get the goddamn photo up. So this is a couple minutes, I think like 7
This
minutes
image
before the
1061 taken at 11:03 p.m. 31 seconds. Does this appear to be the blue suitcase that's in the two videos
I
that
mean,
were captured at
9
11:12 and 11:23 p.m.?
Correct.
Did you take this image at 11:03 p.m.?
I don't remember if I did or not.
She does not
And again,
remember.
we've had
And this is where I think that the prosecution messed up. She does not remember taking the photo. He should have asked, was there anyone else in the apartment at the time? And no one has done that. You need to clarify whether there's anyone else in the apartment at the time, because she is saying that she's not the one that made that noise. She's saying the one where the neighbor said something slid down the stairs. Now she's telling us she doesn't remember taking this photo, but she also didn't remember taking the video either.
by we, I mean you and Mr. Torres, 2 1.5 liters bottles of wine and plus whatever was left over from the day before, correct?
Correct.
So you don't remember taking this photograph?
I don't.
Do you remember whether or not Mr. Torres was in here?
I don't remember taking the photo.
Okay. So what is your memory of what happens between 11:03 p.m. and 31 seconds when that image is captured, and then when the movie starts at 11:12:45? What do you remember?
I don't.
So 9 minutes. She doesn't remember.
Do you remember anything from that night?
I do.
You told the police on February
What do you
25th, 2020, when they first showed you the video, that you didn't remember taking that. You remember that?
I do.
And your testimony is you do remember taking that video,
I do.
but you don't remember taking that photograph 9 minutes prior.
Correct.
So who
Is there
took
some-
it?
Did you have more to drink in those 9 minutes?
I don't.
Didn't drink.
Was Mr. Torres in that suitcase the entire time between 11:03 when that image was taken and then when the second video was taken at 11:23 p.m.?
I believe so, yes.
So for 20 minutes? Yes?
At least 20 minutes.
Did he begin telling you that he couldn't breathe before the video, or do you not remember?
I don't remember.
Now, you testified moments ago that your two neighbors must have misremembered which night the loud noise was, correct?
Yes.
And now you're telling us that you don't remember taking the photograph at 11:03 p.m., correct?
Correct.
Did the police come out to your townhouse on Sunday, February 23rd, 2020?
Yes.
I'm talking about Sunday. This is the Sunday fun day when we're going to publish twice. Were the police out of your residence?
No.
It was the day after, Monday the 24th, correct?
Yes.
And I said that they didn't get to this. He briefly touches on whether someone else was in the apartment or not. But again, to me, he doesn't tie it all the way together. So I'm gonna let this part play, and then I'm going to jump into my just kind of comments on it, because he takes like a long time to get to some things that I thought was funny. But let's go ahead and have her finish up this testimony.
That Monday morning, you called 911, well, Monday afternoon at about 1 p.m., correct?
Yes.
And between that time frame, you were the only person in your apartment plus Mr. Torres in the suitcase, correct?
Yes.
So if anything had been disturbed in your apartment, you had all the time that you wanted to undisturb them before calling 911, correct?
If I wanted to.
Okay. And your testimony is there was no loud boom that shook the walls of your townhouse at about 11 p.m. the night of February 23rd, 2020, correct?
Correct.
To the best of your memory, correct?
Correct.
And you don't remember Jack Diddley's squat.
Now, that second video is 22 seconds where you just hear him say Sarah and you don't say anything. You're familiar with that video, correct?
Yes.
It's after that you go upstairs, correct?
Yes.
How quickly is it that you go upstairs after that?
It was pretty quick.
Can you grab the dogs?
No, the dogs were upstairs already.
Did you call 911 and let the police know that you had zipped somebody shut in a suitcase and they had not been able to get out for 20 minutes?
Nope.
I not.
Did you go to Brian's house and tell him, I had to zip Mr. Torres up in a suitcase shut? We need to do something about that before it passes.
I believe that's what the phone call was.
Well, what do you remember now about the phone call with Brian?
I know that I called him. I don't know specifically what it was about.
You just said that's
Now,
probably what
your
it was
testimony,
about.
it seems like you spend day after day finding things to entertain.
Okay, and now I'm going to stop it right there with her testimony because we're not going to get anywhere with her. We're not going to get anywhere with her. So during her testimony with her defense, she knew everything, right? This is what happens. But then when we get to the prosecution, she doesn't remember what happened 9 minutes before the video. The next day when the police come, she doesn't remember what happened then either. Now she wants us to believe 5 years later, she remembers her thought process and how they got there. And she remembers exactly what George Torres told her. She doesn't remember actually recording the video. She doesn't remember actually taking the picture before recording the video. She doesn't remember recording the second video, but she wants us to believe that she started beating him with the bat because he was saying that he was going to end her. And this kept coming to my mind, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but isn't that the same thing or a similar thing that Ashley Benefield said that her husband said to her before he got into like his fighting pose? Didn't she say something about I'm going to end you or whatever it was? I feel like it was something similar to what Sarah Boone said. I'm like, did you like watch her trial and steal her defense? Like, what the heck is going on? So we're supposed to believe your testimony regarding that. The 12 minutes of the night that you do remember now 5 years later, but you didn't remember it when you talked to the police. But you don't remember what happened 9 minutes before that. So the entire time you believe he was in the suitcase at 9:03 when you took that photo, which it was face down at that moment too. So you believe that, you don't know for sure, but you know what happened in the particular 12 minutes that you was beating that man, trying to get him to understand. And the reason why you beat him and poked him was what she called it, where she poked him and tried to stop him from getting out. You basically decided you were going to beat him into compliance so that he didn't beat you up when he got out, instead of, easily saying, hey, look, I'm going to unzip you. I'm going to count to 10, but don't move until I unzip you. You could have had your car running, you could have had the door open, and you could have ran up out of there, but you was probably drunk, so you shouldn't have been driving anyway. So I guess I'm happy she didn't do that. But the other option was to call the police and say, hey, I did this thing. I need you guys to come kind of de-escalate the situation. The problem is that she knew that she was going to be the one being arrested. So that's why I'm with her. I think she screwed herself over. Like I said, defense, the story she told, I was like, this is BS. It makes no sense. And then they started putting on the evidence of her being, potentially under that battered spouse, them having this abusive relationship where she was hurt multiple times throughout the relationship. And then I'm feeling bad for her at that point. I'm like, oh, maybe she did get the jury's sympathy. And then we get into the prosecution's cross-examination of her. And I'm like, I don't feel sorry for you anymore. I literally don't. Now you're telling me you don't remember anything, but I'm supposed to believe that you remember everything else that happened. And the state said something that made me chuckle. I put the little skull emoji, but next to it because I was just like dead. I was gagged because how dare he say that while he's questioning her? He said, let me get to my little note here. I forgot what he was asking her about, but he said, okay, so they were talking about like when they started drinking. She still states that she does not remember when they started drinking that day. And then she said something, and then he said, "When did your memory stop?" Because she claimed that it wasn't working at 11:03 when she took the picture. So she remembered the night until it got to 11:03. She didn't remember taking the picture, and then she recorded the video, and she wanted to get into the serious conversation with him. And then she wants us to believe she remembers that 12 minutes, but the judge, or I'm sorry, the prosecution was like, okay, so when did your memory stop working? Because clearly you're saying it worked all throughout the day, and then this particular time when you started taking pictures and snapping videos, all of a sudden you don't remember. But now we're 5 years later, and you remember just 12 minutes of the 20 minutes. I thought it was funny. Maybe playing it will give y'all more of the effect, because when I read it, it wasn't as funny as when I heard it. I laughed. But anyways, let me go ahead and jump into the comment section. I know y'all have been waiting because normally we kind of break it up and do comments as we go, but this was just a quick little live stream. I wanted to recap y'all because, like I said at the beginning of the live stream, I have been trying to get some pre-records out for y'all, and I just can't seem to get them edited because editing is hard. So I don't think I'm doing pre-records anymore. I think I'm just going to do multiple live streams per week moving forward for like a period of time, because I have some other content that I want to get out. But just this one day that I did of editing yesterday, I'm still not done with the first video, and I didn't like it at all. So let me have Bossy B bring us into the comments to see what y'all think about the case so far. Or at least to see what y'all think about Sarah's testimony so far, which it's done. They're going to move on to some different witnesses tomorrow. Oh, I forgot to say, one other thing I wanted to touch on was the end of the case. After Sarah was done testifying, the defense basically just wanted to affirm that, or confirm that Sarah did not hit George, or that Sarah did hit George outside of the suitcase on his hand, because that was the only part of his body that was poking out of the suitcase. But all the other hits were while he was in the suitcase, because the prosecution was asking, did she hit him outside of the suitcase at all? Like, did you beat him and then put him in the suitcase and then all of that happened? Or, were all the hits while in the suitcase? That was the point of clarifying that. And then she was taken off the stand. I don't think that she is subject to recall. And then the other thing that I want to bring up that the defense is trying to get on the record, the state keeps asking the defense about these medical records for George that they wanted to use on incidences that the parties had and that they went to, or that he went to the hospital for, because they were supposed to condense them, and they haven't really given the state the final version of the condensed medical records that the court has already approved. And on the record, the defense stated, I have told Sarah that we do not want to pursue that part of the evidence, blah, blah, blah. On the record, I was like, what? Like, you didn't even want to go step up and talk to the judge about this? You put it on the record. I didn't told this girl we are not going down that rabbit hole. And I was like, no way did he just do that. So not only did he do it regarding, what was the other thing we talked about it earlier? It completely slipped my mind of, I forgot what the other thing they had to clarify and get her voir dire on, making sure that she understood going forward on the record. Oh, the arguments about the overt act and letting in the prior bad acts without Sarah testifying first. So they got that on the record. Now they're getting, I done told her about these medical records, and she still keeps trying to push me. I told her I'm the lawyer and I get to make the decisions about this kind of strategy. And then so the judge had to voir dire her and say, remember when I talked to you and said you have the right to testify and you get to make that decision and no one can make that decision for you? Yeah, that's not what this is. The lawyer gets to make the decision regarding the evidence to be put forward. Do you understand that? And got that put on the record. So I definitely think the judge is trying to cover his butt, because we already know Sarah's going to appeal. We know she's going to appeal, and the judge is doing a good job at making the record clear and constantly acknowledging, like, hey, you understand what's going on, right? Hey, you don't have an objection, right? All right, let's go ahead and move forward and go from there. So now we can jump into and have Bossy B bring us into the comments to see what y'all think about Sarah's testimony so far, and honestly, what you think about the case overall. Y'all, we're at 35 likes. I didn't set a like goal for the stream because it was just kind of like a quick stream, but shout out to y'all for everyone that hit the like button. Let's see what the chat has to say. We got Chelsea B, member of the channel, welcome in, saying, I could not get past her ever changing stories, but magically had her story so straight on direct. Exactly. That's where I'm at. It's like, you want us to believe your 12 minutes of the 24 hours, right? Or you want us to believe the 24 hours, right? Because she gave us a rendition of the entire day. But you don't remember like when you took the picture because you don't want to establish that he was in that suitcase for over 20 minutes. If you took the picture at 9:03 when he was in the suitcase, and then your last video was at not 9:03, 11:03, and then your last video was at 11:23, he was in there for at least 20 minutes while she was downstairs. And then she left him down there and didn't do anything to let him out, remove herself from the situation to let him out. She could have sat on the suitcase, unzipped him, then ran out the door. Like I said, I don't know. She could have done a lot of things, but she didn't do those things. Okay. Phoenix says late night stream. Yes. I had to pop in. I had to catch up on the stream, on the trial first, and then pop onto here because I wanted to make sure that I gave my opinion on what's going on in this case. So I'm happy y'all joined me. Stargazer Kawaii says, I didn't even see a scintilla of a threat to create self-defense case myself. I don't think so either. I think he was trying to defend himself at that point. You can't just beat somebody up because they beat you up in the past. Like, it doesn't work like that. You can't say, oh, someone threatened me and said I'm gonna beat you up tomorrow, so then you go over and shoot them. No, you can't do that. You have to wait till tomorrow until they're ready to beat you up. Like, it's stupid, but that is the law. Chelsea B says to Stargazer Kawaii, right? The judge was very generous with the overt act. The issue is that he does not want to be taken up on appeal. So he's going to let the case go forward. He's going to let them put on all the evidence that they want to put on and then have to approve to the appeals court why they should overturn whatever the judge ordered or what they ruled, right? Or I guess what the jury, whether the jury finds her guilty or not. And then the judge sentences it. Stargazer says she created the entire situation. I honestly don't think self-defense should be on the table, and she's putting it on the table. She's allowed to argue whatever she wants to, and the case has to go forward. Like I said, if they don't let it go forward, that's going to make it more likely that it will go up on appeal a lot sooner if they wouldn't have let that self-defense go for it. We got Siobhan saying, I saw earlier that people still don't understand when it is required for law enforcement to identify themselves in chat. LOL, it is confusing to be fair. Identify themselves. I don't think they did not identify themselves. They just didn't inform her that she was being arrested, which they're not required to do. They read her Miranda rights. Miranda rights. Siobhan says snowball's chance in hell, but she is going for that snowball's chance. Because Stargazer Kawaii says she knew he couldn't get out. They showed quite clearly how hard it was to use the zippers. Exactly. And she said while she was trying to unzip the suitcase, she's like, oh, it's harder than it was before. Like, no, don't try to add that little testimony in. Did nobody ask you a question? I'm surprised they didn't ask to strike that from the record because she was not asked the question in doing that. Stargazer Kawaii says, I need chocolate. I had a lot of chocolate today, and I honestly would like another piece. And I don't need another piece, but it was so delicious. It's the Halloween candy for the kids. So they're probably going to get all the ones I don't like because I'm probably going to eat it all before Thursday, which is sad. It's really sad. Siobhan says, cute swoop, LOL. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Stargazer Kawaii says, still don't think if everything she says is true. It's an overt act justifying murder. I don't think so either. I really don't. And it's up to the jury to give that the weight that they need to give it. Like I said, this battered spouse syndrome, I do feel bad for her. I know being in DV relationships is hard, but also at that point, you were not justified in that moment. It's a difference where he like attacked you right then and there, right? Or like how she was saying, oh, tell him how you choked me. If that happened that day, that might even make more sense. But a couple of days ago, and she testified as well that she didn't testify in the video, the interview. She said they hadn't been in a fight except for like a week prior. I'm surprised that the state didn't try to go after that on their cross-examination. She said in the interview that the last fight they had was a week prior. And then she also told Juan Torres that he choked her the other day. Was that the week prior incident? I would have probably highlighted that. So you're retaliating against stuff that didn't even happen recently. Destined to Be says, hey, this is a surprise. Hello, member and moderator of the channel. Yes, I'm telling y'all, I have been trying to do the pre-records and I can't edit them. Like it takes a really long time to edit them. I don't know what it is when I'm live streaming. I mess up sometimes, but it's not as big of a deal. When I like try to do pre-records, I repeat the same thing like 20 times and mess up in the middle and have to continue to repeat it because it feels like it needs to be perfect. But when I live stream, it's just like, oh, we're just kind of chatting. It doesn't really matter. And I can get through it without like a bunch of screw ups to where I'm like without a bunch of without a bunch of screw ups. That's like literally how it is when I record pre-records, and that was on purpose. But when I do it on pre-record, it's not on purpose. I'm just screwing up. So I think I prefer the live streaming, and I think that's just how I'm going to get my content out. This is just the live streaming and then cut it later or something like that to prevent the amount of times that I mess up. I don't know what it is with knowing that people are watching me, but yes, surprise. But otherwise, I wouldn't have this out. And like I said, I already recorded day 1 and day 2 my summary, and I just haven't gotten it out to y'all yet because the editing is hard. June B, another member of the channel, says, yes, this is a motion outside the presence of the jury about if the defense can present their evidence. And that's when they were talking about, talking about the prior bad acts without Sarah testifying. Destined to Be says, appreciate y'all hitting the like button on your way in. Yes, of course. Thank you for that reminder. We definitely appreciate the like button hits. Stargazer Kawaii says 100% fear of retaliation isn't self-defense. Her whole defense is fear of retaliation. And the other thing about it is like, okay, so I'm going to beat you so that you don't beat me anymore. Like, I don't know how that works. That might be why you're in a cycle of domestic violence, because y'all keep beating each other. That's a problem. And that is her whole defense. I agree with that. Destined to Be says, I thought some of his questions were weird. Like I said, I don't know if he's really on her side like that. Like, he's putting her on blast on the record because he's probably having a difficult time with her trying to explain things to her. Stargazer Kawaii says, part of me wonders if he fell asleep and she put him in there rather than them playing hide and seek. I did not think about that. I wonder if that's a thing. I haven't heard that being a theory, but honestly, I wouldn't really be surprised, right? Chelsea B, another member of the channel, says, I do think George was abusive. I also think she was too, though, but she killed the only person who can refute it. Exactly. She's saying that he did all of these bad things and he's not even there to defend himself. That's the bad part of it. He's not even there to defend himself and say, oh, well, I did this because she did this to me. We're only hearing about her incidences. They downloaded photos only from her phone. If he had a phone, would that have had other evidence against her of being abusive? And like I said, she had already been arrested for some of the acts against him. So we don't know everything that she has done to him because he's not here to testify to it. And it sounds like it was mostly just them together. Destined to Be says, I noticed her emotions or facial expressions never changed the entire time she was on the stand. Yeah, she showed no emotion, none at all. And even in her police interview, she was definitely more concerned about herself and what was going to happen to her and her dogs and her son. That's the only thing that she really cared about. I don't think she really cared. Like, I think she just wants to get out of this. And she's not really taking into the gravity of what she has done. Like, yes, he was abusive. Did he deserve to be in jail? Probably. But did he deserve to die? Probably not. Not in that way either. Like I said, if it would have been a more active scene, it might have been more justified. But like what she's describing, we were having fun. We were doing puzzles. We were playing hide and seek. He got in a suitcase and I decided I was going to beat him like a piñata. Like, what? Like, how did we even get here, right? And to say that, oh, well, I continued to talk to him after I recorded the video going, that's my name, don't wear it out. That's how I feel when you choke me. Oh, shut up, stupid, blah, blah, blah. And then after that, I turned the video on and I tried to have like a very civilized conversation with him. And then he started getting angry, and I just have no idea why. His tone, I know that tone. I began to become afraid of him. Ma'am, I'm afraid of you, the way you were talking to him in that suitcase. So I don't know like what her thought process was. Maybe it's because she was drunk. I don't know. But for her to then try to say, oh, he was getting aggressive. Yeah, he want to get out. Even if he was aggressive in that moment, he had the right to be aggressive. He's losing air, right? He has to do something in order to get out. Chelsea B says, I thought the prosecution dropped the ball a little, not calling out all of those inconsistencies. I think so too. And I wonder why they haven't moved to impeach her yet. Because she did have a lot of inconsistencies. The thing about it though is she admitted on the stand that she lied to the prosecution, so it's hard to point out her inconsistencies there. But I do think they should have pointed it out a little bit more. But like I said, I liked how the judge said, well, when did your memory turn off? So that we're on the same page here, right? Destin to be says, I don't know what the prosecutor was on. Maybe he's just confident the jury will convict. And I don't think he's tying up loose ends. And I think that's how she gets off. I think the prosecution is not tying their story together. They're not finishing lines of questioning. I don't think the defense is either. But the prosecution is the one that has to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And I'm like, are y'all trying to let her out easy? Or like, what's going on? Or are y'all just tired because of all the evidence that's coming in every single day because the defense really doesn't have their stuff together? Chelsea B says, after Casey Anthony, no prosecutor should ever think they have a slam dunk. You have to convince these jurors. And I honestly don't know if I would be all the way convinced in this case. Other than that, I know a lot of the facts and I know what she's been doing behind the scenes. The jury doesn't know all of those things. I think I probably could have picked up on it throughout the actual questioning in the trial, but it's not as strong when you're the one sitting in that sitting in the courtroom, probably bored of the evidence, right, at this point. And they may not pick up on the inconsistencies. They may not, without the prosecution calling it out. We got Stargazer Kawaii saying, there's something about how she acts on the stand that seems so callous and unsympathetic to me. I agree. She didn't even cry about her being in love with him. She didn't cry about their relationship. She didn't cry saying, I didn't mean to do it. Oh my gosh, I really didn't mean to do it. Nothing. She's just like, it's very matter of fact. Y'all know I'm just afraid and scared of him. Yep, I am afraid and scared of him. Very robotic. Sarah Boone's 13 lawyer says Sarah's strong. Sarah is a survivor. Well, I'm glad she got a supporter, right? Stargazer Kawaii says it is weird. It is a weird play between not remembering anything and knowing exactly what happened. And she wants us to believe that what she's saying has happened. But all these past 5 years, she didn't remember this until she got this defense attorney. And I think that the other attorneys that she fired was like, no, this is not going to fly. And this guy came in thinking he was going to make it fly. I kind of feel like she just wanted to make sure to go to trial. I think she knows she doesn't have a good case, but she wanted to go to trial because she wants her moment of fame. That's my opinion about the whole trial situation. But now that I'm seeing the prosecution put their case on, I'm like, why not roll the dice? Because they're not tying together their case. And what do you call it? Actually, the defense put in manslaughter on the table. I'm like, state, you might want to take it the way you tying things together, or not, lack thereof tying things together. Let's see here. Justin to be says this is where she played herself. Yeah, she played herself, and once we got to cross. Stargazer Kawaii says him trying to live a threatening overt act, still don't even see a scintilla of a threat here. No, exactly. It's not. He's literally trying to get out so he can breathe. And even if he would have got out, he probably would have been trying to catch his breath. Sarah Needy, I think I'm saying that right, says, first time to catch a live. Good morning from Netherlands. Hello and welcome in. Happy that you can catch a live. We are almost at the end, honestly. I thought this was going to be a quick stream, y'all. See, like when I'm talking about when I do records, the pre-records, it takes me an hour. And I'm like, oh, I thought that was going to be quick. And then when I do live stream, I'm like, oh, is this going to be a quick 1 hour live stream? We're like 2 hours in at this point. Sarah Boone's 13 lawyer says, Scintilla, thank you for that. Destin to Be says, I think the judge is trying to avoid it being overturned on appeal. Absolutely. Ding, ding, ding. You got it right. I think they are trying to make a very clear record because they know that she has already been a nightmare through the trial court and they don't want this going to trial again. Sarah Boone's 13th lawyer says, George stabbed her leg and her lips turned blue. Yes, that did. She did testify to that. That stab to the leg did seem pretty hurtful. I feel bad for her for that, but again, it still doesn't justify her and what she goes on to do. Peaches says, I can't keep up with all of her contradictions. She contradicted her way through her entire testimony, and I think that's going to reflect poorly on her. Again, I don't know why the the prosecution didn't move to impeach her, but they didn't. Justin to Be says she can't either. Peaches, she can't keep it together. KL Lee says, how would she make him go into the suitcase? She didn't make him go into the suitcase. There is some speculation that maybe she put him into the suitcase. But overall, I do believe that he got in the suitcase himself. The part where she messed up is beating him while he was in it. KL Lee says, this is mom mentality, regardless of what's at stake. That is true. Agreed. As Sarah in D says, didn't she call that a big suitcase? She did call it a big suitcase, but now all of a sudden it's not a big suitcase. So we'll see where she goes from there. Tanya D says, I think she did at one point. Sarah, to what part? Didn't she call it a big suitcase? Yeah. And then Destin DeVee says, very selective memory. Very, very selective, but she wants us to believe. You didn't remember 5 years ago, but now you remember now, but you don't remember what happened the 9 minutes before the 12 minutes you want us to believe. Like, which one is it? Which one is it? That man was in that suitcase for 20 minutes and not 20 minutes. I don't know why she's trying to act all confused now. It wasn't even 20 minutes. You left him there overnight. It really doesn't matter when it started. You left him there overnight. Okay. He told you that he couldn't breathe at what, 11, 12? And you went upstairs and went to sleep at midnight? Like, come on, dude. And then you slept till 1 a.m. You slept till 1 a.m. And then she said, the prosecutor tried to give her an out. Would you have done that if you were sober? And she said, oh, well, if I was scared, yeah, I would have done it. It's like, what? Like, why would you say that? Why would you say that? Anyways, y'all, that's all I have for the live stream tonight. I probably am going to try to live stream tomorrow as well. It'll probably be another late live stream like this one, if I'm able to watch the videos enough and be prepared to live stream. Otherwise, we'll be back on our regular night on Thursday to kind of catch up on what's been going on in the trial. The defense plans on resting their case either Thursday afternoon or Friday morning, so that the prosecution can then start on rebuttal to try to, clear up their case. Oh, one of my lights turned off. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I have like new little lights back here and they're kind of cute. So super happy about that. Anyways, I will see y'all all on the next live stream. I hope you have a good night and hopefully I see you on Thursday. Bye.